Welcome to our incense course. We are so excited to be able to share incense with you, an incense ceremony. Incense ceremony and tea have so much in common, starting with the fact that they both are, you could say, types of plant medicine, both derive from the physical, chemical, sensual, and spiritual aspect of a plant. In one case, a cluster of camellia trees, and in another, aloes wood. Just as in the West, we often think of tea as any herbal medicine brewed in hot water, but as we then become Chajin and start to travel a little bit further, we begin to get more and more focused exclusively on the tea that is produced from camellia trees, and we call the other types of herbal blends that we brew in hot water tisane or herbal medicine. In the same way, as you travel in incense, there are a million billion wonderful scents, everything from lavender to sandalwood, all kinds of oils and resins, copal, myrrh, but slowly you start to hone in on just one, which is aloes wood, which of course we'll learn a ton about in this course. So both of these are derived from this plant. Both of them have a scientific side in that you can really geek out on how they're produced and made. Both of them have history and rich culture dating back centuries. Both have a deep, deep, subtle spiritual side that is both ceremonial, so the movements and the ceremony itself and the connection to sacred energy, the offering of the tea to nature, to the spirits, and the offering of the incense to nature and to the spirits. They all have all of that. And then they all have, no matter what kind of tea you're drinking, no matter what kind of aloes wood you're using, both have a really powerful sensual aspect too, in the sense that they bring us bliss. And there's a real magic in the fact that something produced by nature can so awaken our senses in such just transcendent bliss. To me, and this is maybe slightly foo-foo, but to me it is a gesture of symbiosis, in the same way that flowers or fruit are produced to attract certain species of animals or insects to help the plant. I feel like certain plants have also just become intertwined with humans, and we've become part of their destiny, and they've become part of our destiny. And as other plants looked for symbiosis with worms or bugs or other animals that can carry their seeds or help them reproduce, in the same way, these plants have woven their way into the fabric of humanity, and they've done so primarily through the gateway of the senses, through the tremendous bliss that they bring, the bliss of flavor and aroma as you drink a wonderful tea, and of course the bliss of the fragrance of aloes wood as it transcends. And both tea and aloes wood have a sense where you can travel down as subtly as you're able to. They go further than what you're capable of, further than what any of us are capable of. So you always feel like you haven't exhausted what could be experienced if you were only a little bit more sensitive. You can travel to very, very subtle levels in tea and start to experience more and more and more. And you drink the same tea, and all of a sudden you realize, whoa, I never noticed that this was there. And the same with the aloes wood. There's many layers of it as you move down and as you prepare it in different ways. There's using smoke, and then there's the smokeless roasted way, which is more subtle, especially it draws a lot more out. And we're going to learn about all that. So there really is a lot of parallels. And there are even places where the two can work together. There are tea ceremonies that can have incense in them, and there are incense ceremonies that could have tea in them. Maybe they could happen one right after the other, or there are ways for them to even blend together a little bit. And the practices themselves are also very, very, very supportive. So all of the movements and stuff that you learn in incense ceremony and all of the movements and things that you learn in tea ceremony, they all help build each other and help each other to grow. And they can also grow your mindfulness, your sense of presence, your connection to yourself, your connection to nature. And then quite beautifully, they're both shareable. So they're something that you can share with your community and share with your loved ones. And through that, find time and space to connect with each other meaningfully, to look each other in the eyes and to maybe have important conversations, or even lighthearted conversations that are buoyed on a sense of love, floating on a sense of joy and sensual bliss, and more casual and free that way. And so just resulting in a really healthy sense of connection with one another. And so there's a lot that we can learn from incense ceremony that can be applied to tea ceremony and vice versa. So it really is a wonderful practice to bring into your cha dao as a cha jin. They really are parallel. The movements help each other. They support each other. They aren't. It's not like you invest time in one and it like distracts from the other. I find that as I study incense ceremony, which is the younger of the two in my life, it is definitely impacting my ability to appreciate tea, my sensitivity to the aromas of tea, and it's also improving my mindfulness and my ability to make tea, and it's also improving some of the movements in tea, and it's also finally resulting in insights. So some of the insights that I have through the practice of incense ceremony are impacting my exploration of tea and cha dao. And I vice versa, of course, because I came to incense ceremony already with many years of tea practice. So they both really are lifelong endeavors, and they both, really there's so much to them, and mastery is so far away, at least for me, that I feel like they are both inexhaustible. They're so subtle that even in the experience of smelling the incense or drinking the tea, I can always discover new things. I'm always improving my practice in both. I feel very much a beginner in both. And every time I turn a corner, I discover this huge new world in tea or this huge new world in incense that opens up. And there's just so much really there. Of course, there's just so much to incense and incense ceremony, even just focusing on aloes wood and leaving out other types of oils and flowers and things, and just focusing on aloes wood. There's so much to learn. And there's so much to learn about incense ceremony itself too. And so we're going to focus on a nice overview and focus on all the things you need to get started in a practice of Kodo, the way of incense. Or if you already have a practice of Kodo, hopefully this course will deepen it and inspire you to travel further and learn more, as all of us need to do. I knew long ago that these two practices would one day intertwine in my life, and I had a lot of interest in incense ceremony, but I hadn't yet found a teacher. And Chen Yuting is such an amazing human, and she is, of course, many of you know, you've met her on Global Tea annual trips, and or when you came to Taiwan. She's a student of Master Tsai and a dear sister of ours, and she's a tea teacher in her own right and has taught us so much about tea as well. And I knew that she had been practicing incense ceremony for many years, but I never got really a chance to sit with her until about 3 or 4 years ago. It finally just happened. I think it was around 3 years ago. It finally just happened. We were up in Taipei one day, and she had all her stuff out, and we got to sit for a ceremony, and I was blown away. I was blown away by her skill, her mindfulness, the ambiance, the incense itself, of course. The whole thing was transcendent. I had sat for incense ceremonies before, but never that powerful. And so right away, enthusiastically, immediately, as soon as we started talking afterwards, I asked her if she would teach us, and she agreed and welcomed the idea and started coming down to Miali, and we started going to Taipei, and we started having lessons. And flash forward a few years later, and we arrived right here where we made this decision to record a course with her. However, there were some real challenges to making this course that you really have to be aware of before you start watching the lessons, because it will inform how you watch them and how you learn. Chen Yuting is a very quiet person. She's very zen. She's very meditative. She's got a really peaceful, joyful ambience, and she's a wonderful teacher. And as she will say in her intro, after I give you mine here, we're going to let her give an introduction to the course as well, because she's the teacher of this course, really. So her introduction is far more valuable than mine. I'm just giving a sort of prelude to what she's going to say. And I think what she'll say in that intro is that she, is coming out of herself and learning to become a tea teacher and an incense teacher. And so she was excited to do this course, also just to like put herself on the spot. However, the real challenges that we face are, first of all, a language barrier. Chen Yuting speaks no English. So we have a problem with that. That was the first problem. But then there's a second big problem, which is that her style of teaching is not super conducive to film, because Yuting is a hands-on teacher. When you come and take a class with her, she shows you what she's doing and demonstrates it over and over again, and then gives you the tools, and then everybody starts practicing, and she comes around and she corrects you and explains things. She'll also answer questions to no end. She's incredibly patient. And over the last couple of years of taking incense ceremony classes with her, I've asked so many questions. I'm a curious student, and I'm a little bit annoying, so I sound like a little boy. What is this? What is this? What is this? What is that? Why? Why is it like that? Why? And on and on and on, and taking notes and asking questions. And she's so patient, and she'll answer them all. But she tends to just answer questions when asked. She doesn't like launch into long elaborations. She doesn't really lecture. That's not her style of teaching. So her style of teaching is more showing and then answering questions. And whereas I'm a big mouth, so I'll lecture and talk, and that's more my style of teaching. And I feel like that might be a little more conducive to film, but hers style of teaching is far more conducive to in-person learning. And that was a challenge when we set out to make this course. And I hope that all of you get a chance. When we open the new center, Light Meets Life, we will certainly have an incense ceremony room in it, and Yuting will be coming down and teaching regular courses. And I really hope and pray that all of you guys who are interested in this course also get a chance to come one day and learn in person with her and experience just how wonderful of a teacher she is in that way. But filming, we had these two very big challenges, and we thought a lot about how to go about it. For her introduction, which is coming up next, we're going to use subtitles and just let her speak for herself. But throughout the course, I'm going to act as a kind of guide. I want to apologize for that, and I want you to know that I'm not trying to steal Chen Yuting's thunder. 90% of what I know about incense, which is admittedly very little at this point, I learned from her and from asking her lots of questions, as I mentioned, over the last couple of years. And so what I'm going to do is take all of the questions that I've asked over the last couple of years, and I've made a lot of notes out of that. And then before each video, before we sit down to film each video, I'm going to ask questions of her in terms of what we're going to be doing in that particular video. And then if any questions come up during the video, I will ask her directly if and when they come up, and translate on the spot. But I have to apologize. I'm not a translator. I'm not a professional translator. It's not what I do. My listening comprehension in Chinese is very good. I feel like my spoken Chinese has gone a little downhill this year with COVID-19 because I've been isolated in my house and speaking only English. But my listening is still really, really good, and I'm sure the spoken would come back if I get in some situations where I can practice a little bit more. But any questions that come up, I'm happy to ask her, and I'll translate as we go. I hope I do a good job. And then I think another of my jobs is to kind of be like a sports commentator. So I'm just going to, because I've asked so many questions over the last couple of years, and I've taken some classes, I think, as she's demonstrating particular things, she'll probably be very quiet and very mindful, and I will just give you like the sports dialogue. Like, and now she's taking the the incense chopsticks, and she's, I'm going to just explain what she's doing and elaborate on it to the best of my ability. I will make a very strong effort to avoid interjecting any of my own thoughts or opinions, and to just focus on the material that I have gathered through asking her questions and through taking courses with her these 2 years. The one exception to that will be the preparation video, which will be the first video in the course, because in that video, I'm going to launch us into the course from the place where I feel like a lot of you are going to be coming from, which is tea and tea ceremony. So that I do feel comfortable talking about on my own, of course. So as we launch into this course, the very first video, I'm going to use some tea wisdom in relation to preparation for a ceremony, and just kind of generalize it so that, the stuff we use to prepare for a tea ceremony is the same kind of preparations that we'll use for an incense ceremony. And then I will finish that video by focusing on the things that are specific to incense. But then after that video, I promise to try my best to be as good of a translator as I can, which is probably not as good as you deserve, but I promise to do my best. And I promise also to very much stick to the material that has been covered in courses these last 2 years with Yuting, and through the questions that I've asked her in my notebooks. And then I also will bring those notebooks and I will go over with her what we're going to cover in each lesson right before the lesson. And I'll ask as many questions right before the lesson as I can to make sure that my commentary, my dialogue is on track and on target. And then if anything, if we as we go, we stumble into any of the many areas of incense ceremony that I don't understand, I will ask her on the spot and translate on the spot. So that's kind of the method that we're going to use to present this course to you. It may not be the best way, but we were faced with these challenges, the language barrier, and the fact that she's very soft-spoken and very mindful and teaches in a much more hands-on way, with questions and answers being the conveyor of information, not lectures. So she doesn't teach us that way. She doesn't sit and lecture to us and then, demonstrate. She just demonstrates, and then if you have questions, you can ask, and then you'll start getting some information that you desire. So this is the approach that we took to solve these two issues and present her incredible teachings and her incredible skills to you, and allow you to start a practice of incense ceremony. I hope it is successful for you. I hope it inspires you to want to explore incense ceremony, which is such a beautiful, beautiful art and so conducive to a life of tea. And I hope that this practice brings joy and a wealth of insight, your own insight about yourself and about nature and about peace and about love and about connection. And I hope that you can share it with others as well, and that through that we spread the peace and the love and the joy that connects us all and binds us all in our hearts. May your course be successful. May it be so fragrant and fill you with bliss and joy in every cell. May all the aromas penetrate your body and uplift you to transcendence.